104.7 The Cave. KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. Broadcasting from the Lorenz Plumbing, Heating, and Air Studios. Your home for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Touchdown! Kansas City!
It's Ned Talk, your live and local Chiefs pregame show. Hosted by Ned Reynolds, Joe Western, and the B-Team. Proud members of the Chiefs Radio Network on 104.7 The Cave.
Well, Ned, here we are 2 weeks in a row on a Saturday. I mean, unbelievable. How are you?
And it'll be unbelievable this week because the game will be on Thursday. And we'll have a Thursday evening pregame show. So we haven't, Sundays, I guess, have disappeared.
Yeah, for the time being. And when you look at the Chiefs' schedule, there's Sundays are kind of few and far between on the Chiefs' schedule.
They really are.
All right, Joe Weston, Ned Reynolds, Jake Gillette, and Alex Scott with us today. I was almost called you Josh Roberts, but
he looks just like him.
I'm not used to being on the edge of the table.
Yeah, you're half the man Josh Roberts is. Okay, I'm just going to put it that way.
In character, especially.
So what we said here last week, if you listened to the show, we talked a lot about the Chiefs, and we said that they wanted to go through this game without a major injury, and whoops, that didn't happen.
First play from offense, and what happens? You lose one of your key individuals, and it's a collarbone injury that's going to keep him out for probably, I'm going to guess, 6 weeks. It'll be the max recovery period, and then there will be probably some time to rehab and get himself back in. So, they can be costly. That's why you don't see the regulars in there, and probably won't today. Here's Jared Goff of Detroit. I don't imagine he'll play at all. And Mahomes will because Andy Reid said he would. But you don't want to lose anybody in a situation like this. It just can't happen.
I was reading an article before we went on the air, and it was talking about how Andy Reid wanted to send a message to the NFL, and the first play was designed to go to Xavier Worthy on a deep post. Jacksonville did something that caused that not to happen, and the check down was Marquez Brown. And he's injured right there in the first play of the game of the season, first preseason game. What were you thinking when you saw it, Jake?
I immediately knew he was hurt. The way you've seen that play where that guy wraps him up and then drives him into the ground, and he lands on that shoulder. And I was telling my wife, I was like, that dude's hurt. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah. And so, of course, 5 minutes later, a couple of plays later, they zoom in it with him on the sideline. He's surrounded by the whole team's specialists, and I'm like, there it is. I'm telling you, the dude I thought it was like an AC joint issue, which would be even worse for him. So, like you said, the play got busted up. Mahomes, it was a perfect pass. He was backpedaling. It looked like they had some pressure on him, and that was his check down guy, wide open. Got the ball and then just turned around and just got laid out real quick and hurt.
It is one of the things you fear the most in preseason football, your team being hurt. But as far as the game goes, what did you see from the Kansas City Chiefs, Ned?
Saw an effort that was designed specifically for the second and third string players to play themselves out of a position. I don't think Kansas City, I don't think you could see it. They all play one series in the first quarter, and that's offense, and then they're out of there. Then it's up to the reserves and the guys who are trying to make the team, the free agents and rookies and so forth, to get in there and do their best. And some of them did their best. But this is pro football, and it's an exhibition game. You're going to have situations like that where not everything clicks. So it was impossible for me to draw any kind of judgment other than what Kansas City did on that first series, marched the ball right down the field. I thought it was an odd series of calls that Mahomes had, but maybe that was by design. Let's not give away anything at all. Sure. And they settled for a field goal, and that's it. That was it.
What'd you think, Alec? You take in any of the game?
Didn't get to take in much. We're still off the grid at my house, so to speak, with the internet, and no cable, so I don't have access to anything. But I followed along with all the games that have been going on. The injury's a shame. They go to show no matter what rule changes the NFL makes, hip drop tackle, can't go low, can't go too high. People are going to get hurt. That's just the nature of the sport, because we're also looking at right tackle Jawan Taylor dealing with an injury as well. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get banged up a bit. It's just you hope not too much. It's the starters coming out, playing about a series. That's what you expect. And like you said, you expect it to be very vanilla. These coaches don't want to give away the stuff they've been cooking up all offseason in an exhibition game that doesn't matter. I think the same thing happens with this new kick return rule throughout the preseason. It's going to look a little sloppy to me because I think these special teams coordinators were licking their chops to come up with something, but they don't want to show you yet. Mm-hmm. Why break it out now when it doesn't matter? So it's fun to watch these guys in the reserves try and get their reps in, try and make a splash play here and there, make a name, show there should be part of the 53-man roster. So we'll be able to see plenty of that today.
It's interesting. I was reading, again, articles before we went on the air, and one, Andy Reid said that he thought the number ones were going to play a half. I don't think that that's true. I think Andy Reid's just thrown up a smoke screen there. We'll probably see them maybe a quarter, maybe 2 or 3 series today, but I don't think we'll see them a full half. And then the other thing that was interesting to me was that he mentioned at least twice in his press interview the Ravens, that his eye is not on these games at all. His eye is 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now when they play the Baltimore Ravens. Ned?
Well, I think that's probably right. That's the first game of the season. It is one that's going to be, obviously, it's the only game that night. It is not the only game within a 24-hour period because Philadelphia and Green Bay play in Sao Paulo, Brazil the next night, and that is a very rare Friday NFL game.
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights is what it is. But in regards to the opener, you really want to put your best foot forward. The Chiefs did not last year lose to the Detroit Lions in the opener, and it kind of set the scale, so to speak, for what was going to happen for much of the season. So I think he aims to correct that and get off on a real solid note against a really good football team. Baltimore has a nice team. I did see them play a little bit of their exhibition, and just like everybody else, they didn't show anything. Mm-hmm. They're not going to show anything. None of these teams will. But the fact is that they're very good. Lamar Jackson he is not better than Mahomes in my opinion, but everybody else seems to think so. So hey, let's prove it on the football field.
Let's count Super Bowl titles. Let's just do that. How about that? Let's just do that. And the Chiefs have a tough schedule. They they start out against the Ravens and then the Bengals, and you really don't know what you're going to get from the Bengals. They were not the same team that we saw the previous 2 seasons last year, Jake, but Joe Burrow and that crew, they've got one of the best wide receiving cores in all the NFL. That's going to be a tough test for the Chiefs, too.
Oh, for sure. And I think Burrow's going to have an MVP season this year. I think he's got something to prove. Obviously, with the bad blood between the 2 programs, that's going to fuel the fire even more. So the Bengals are always going to want to walk into what they like to call Burrowhead. And, last time they played, the Chiefs showed them exactly what they got and everything Arrowhead had to throw at him, even though I think they only lost by 3 in that game. They're going to those first 2 games against the same conference teams. If the Chiefs can go 2-0 out of that, that's a humongous start. Starting with the first game on Thursday night, like you said, Ned, let's not lose even by 1 point to this team. But it is going to be a really good team with the Ravens, and then back. A good thing there's 10 days before the Bengals game because whatever they got to work out any kinks, whether it's a win or loss on the first game, the Bengals are going to bring in the heat. They really are. That's one they've had circled on the calendar since they released the schedule. So the Bengals are not somebody we need to take lightly.
Well, you said it, the circle on the schedule. Everybody's got Kansas City circled on the schedule. I think something that's going to be important for Chiefs Kingdom to think about is there's a real possibility of 0-2, and there's a real possibility that when that happens, you just need to not panic because teams are going to give them their best shot. We've seen Kansas City not stumble out of the starters' blocks, but you come out slow. You got, like you said, they have kinks to work out. These starters don't get these reps in the preseason, and it just takes a little longer to get the engine going. And when all of a sudden you go, is something wrong with Kansas City? They're 0-2, and then when 10 weeks later they're 9-2, we go, no. They're still Kansas City.
And it can happen in the NFL, too. Case in point is Philadelphia, 10-1.
Yep.
And they finish up 10-7, I think their final record was. I am going to debate that. I just cannot see Kansas City losing their first 2 games. If one of them's on the road, I could, but not their first 2 at home.
And I'm not necessarily saying they will. I'm saying there is a world where that's a possibility with those 2 teams.
Sure.
And but then it'll be just time to handle their business. The division, I think, could lock down. I would probably sit here and bet Kansas City goes 1-1 in those games. and then we'll see what happens come playoff time. But I think with that 1-2 punch to start, if you go on 1-1, you're not happy, but you'll take it because I think they'll handle their business down the road. As deep and strong as the AFC is, Kansas City's still on top of it until someone proves otherwise.
And those are the two teams that you're going to see come January. If they can beat them both, those are those tiebreaker games that will add up at the end of the season when you got the same record, but you're like, oh, by the way, we did whoop your butt on Thursday night or next Sunday. So
I know throughout all the years, and when New England went on their 20-year run, it almost seemed like every other year they started 2-2.
No,
and there was always a what's going on,
Alex. They started 6-0 because of their schedule. 2 wins with the Jets, 2 wins with Dolphins, and 2 wins.
And then history repeats itself.
Don't get me started.
2 wins against Denver, 2 wins against LA, and 2 wins against Las Vegas.
True. All right.
I am seeing it. It is almost uncanny how mirroring it is to that right when New England goes down and the AFC East picked up.
That's true.
Kansas City's rising and the AFC West just fell apart.
All right, let's talk about that for just a second. You're listening to Ned Talk. I'm 104.7 The Cave. It is a local live sports talk show. We're all live last time I checked. And we are doing this show from the Cave headquarters, and we're getting you ready for the Chiefs pregame show, which comes your way at 2 o'clock, so that's 49 minutes from now. But let's talk about the AFC West for just a second. And here's the thing that is common when you hear people talk about the AFC West in the preseason, and that is this team's a coming on. The Chargers are coming on. They're the team that can take the Chiefs down. The Raiders, they have a new coach. Antonio Brown is the guy that's going to take them to the next level. They're coming on. Oh, Sean Payton's in Denver now. So,
here they come.
Here they come. They've made some changes and adjustments. Do you see anybody, Ned, in this division really challenging the Chiefs this year?
The only reason I would lean that way is because the media has really glommed onto the Chargers, and that's because of their coach. And Harbaugh is such a controversial, polarizing individual that's the reason for it. Do they have the talent? Yeah, they've got some talent. But does he bring – what he does bring, let's put it that way, is a national championship in college football. He brings that to the bench. Now, assuming, and the media does assume, that all carries over to the pros, and it does not. That is not a fair assumption at all. Different style of football, number one, at different style of player, number two.
Now, when he was at San Francisco, before he took the job at Michigan, that was a pretty good team that he had there. And one of the things that impressed me about that team is something that you don't see very often in the NFL these days. They were very good at tackling. And I don't know if that's something that comes as a Harbaugh product or if that was his defensive coordinator at that time.
Well, it's probably a combination of both. The Harbaugh family, it's not just him.
Yeah.
His brother's at Baltimore. His dad was a great coach, Western Kentucky. We played against them. They were in our conference. The Harbaugh family is very football-oriented. And as a result, I think you see a combination of philosophies from the brother with the Baltimore Colts, from him, and from Dad. I think that all comes together and has formed a very good nucleus for what they are teaching. I suspect you probably saw a pretty good example of that with the tackling that was demonstrated by the 49ers.
How many touchdown passes has Harbaugh thrown over the last few years?
Harbaugh? 0.
Okay, I was just checking on that.
He is the coach, but you cannot deny the fact that he has taken a Michigan football team that's underachieved and made them a winner.
No, I totally get that, but I think at the NFL you've got to have that combination of talent and coaching, and you have to have also the group that buys into it. I mean, I think everybody in this room would probably agree with me on some level or not that Nick Saban is one of the top football minds in all of the sport today. But he goes to Miami, and what's he do?
Well, and not just Miami. Michigan State, of course, he won a national championship at LSU.
Yeah.
But at Michigan State, he did not. And with Miami, again, we're getting into a different style of football and a different attitude because you're dealing with professional football players, all of whom have massive egos, all of whom I'm going to take instruction here, I'm there. And even Saban, as good a coach as he is, any coach other than a Bill Belichick who let them play is probably going to have some different adjustment in their thinking.
Well, I think part of Belichick's whole thing, too, was he was the GM. He was the final word. There was no place for a player to go if he had a disagreement with Bill Belichick.
Bingo. That's what I'm talking about.
Or, to Robert Kraft, and that was it. So, I mean, Harbaugh, I have a lot of respect for him as a coach. I don't have a respect for him as a human being and some of the things that he's done as a coach. He's kind of slimy. But I guess what I would ask all three of you guys is, do you think that when he comes to the Chargers, there's going to be a buy-in from the players?
No.
Because sometimes you don't think so.
I do not think so, and I think his track record at Michigan and at other locales says a little bit about the man's character. I'm not going to criticize him in that regard, but look what the NCAA did to him.
Yeah.
He can't go back to college coaching now. If he does, he has to automatically sit out a year and then spend the next 4 years in a show cause hiring, which never works. So he's just never going back. He's in a position now with San Francisco, with San Diego, with the Los Angeles Chargers. That's what happens when you get my age or senile. When with the Chargers now, that's the situation he's in. So from that aspect, he does not have any options at all. This is where he wants to be. And he's being paid well. Monetarily, he doesn't have to worry about anything. But from an ego standpoint, he does want to succeed.
What do you think, Jake? Are the Chargers the team du jour this year, or is it somebody else?
I'm going to disagree with you, Ned. I think that the players will have a buy-in. Harbaugh is one of those guys. You see what he did with San Francisco, and again Michigan, which is a little bit different, obviously. But the two guys that would give him any kind of headache was Keenan Allen, who's gone, Mike Williams, who is gone. So you have a bunch of these new guys. Palmer's like the only one that was there last year. Austin Eckler's gone. So it's like he came into a team this year that has a lot of new people in new positions. And so I think with his style, I think he's one of those guys that he's going to get the respect. He's likable. I never remember anybody on the San Francisco ever really – I didn't remember anything where there was a locker room situation between Harbaugh and his guys. And I think these guys are ready to take the Chiefs on, so they're going to listen. And he has a track record of being a winner. And so, and you have and also his last name. So I think that the Chargers is the only team that's going to give the Chiefs any headache. I don't think the Chiefs lose the division, but that would be the only one I could see that is going to make a little splash and go into the playoffs, which they were just there 2 years ago. So it's a good team.
You mentioned 3 players that were major components with the Chargers. I mean, who do they got left?
I'm telling you, they just got Quentin.
Ladd McConkey is a receiver.
Ladd is
drafted out of Georgia. Josh Palmer's has been there. They had a stable running backs for a while, backing up an aging Austin Eckler. They've got Rashawn Slater is a left tackle who's very, very good, who's had some injury issues. And the one name we haven't dropped in all of this is Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
who is not Mahomes, but
he's really good.
There's probably 28 teams that would love to have Justin Herbert as their quarterback. So he's the piece. He is the reason Harbaugh is there, in my opinion, as you go, because I'll figure the rest of it out. Give me that guy manning the ship. Now they're paying Justin Herbert the money. He's got a massive deal, which he earned, but when you get a quarterback under those massive deals, it gets hard to build the team up around him. So they just bled a lot of aging talent. You mentioned Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. They're still Joey Bosa is still eating up a ton of money. Khalil Mack is eating up a ton of money. So they kind of went all in a bit ago, and it didn't work. So I think the fair judgment of Harbaugh is going to be a multi-year thing, because I think this team has the quarterback and a coach that can guide it. I just don't know if they're ready yet to push. Sitting here today, if I had to guess who comes in second in the division, I think I'd go Denver. And I think I'd go, not that I think this is still Kansas City's division to run away with, but if Sean Payton and Bo Nix are working together like the reports are saying they will, I think that there's a little Drew Brees-ism to Bo Nix, a little undersized, very accurate passer, trying to get the systems in place. Again, that's another team that's not ready to challenge Kansas City. Ultimately, I think Kansas City wins this division by probably 4 to 5 games, just based on history. But there's building blocks in place around these other teams. And this isn't even bringing up Las Vegas, who Antonio Pierce is very popular with his players, and they have some very good talent there, but they do not have the quarterback position figured out in any way, shape, or form. And in today's NFL, that's about as close to a death sentence as you can have.
Interesting. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about college football because we really haven't covered that at all. So let's give a little time to college football. When we come back, it's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
You are so lucky you get us on a Saturday as we get you ready for the Chiefs pregame show. Coming your way at the top of the hour, Chiefs and Detroit Lions today. Preseason football right here on 104.7 The Cave. Your home for the Kansas City Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. I'm Joe Westen with Ned Reynolds, Alex Scott, Jake Gillette. We're talking football. We're sticking with football, but we're going to go to the non-pro side of football. I did the air quotes there. And college football, because we haven't talked about that much. And Josh Roberts, our good buddy, is at Aliens Romulus today, so he's not here with us to discuss how great Alabama is going to be this season. But who do you see being the class of the college football side this year, Ned?
Very hard to overlook Georgia. They are really loaded, a good team. Carson Beck at quarterback, and they're just a really solid football team that has been there. But you mentioned Alabama. Usually the paragon for college football rankings is the Associated Press. That's the original one that put them together and the one that's looked at with the most credibility. They have Alabama ranked number 5 in the country, and it is, I think I'm right on this, the 17th consecutive year, 17 straight years that Alabama has had within the top 5 in the country. Now, that says something about the legitimacy of that program. They'll be good. DeBoer, who is the new coach down there, is going to bring a championship level. You know, he coached at Washington, had a Fresno State, and I've forgotten what the NAIA school, I think it was maybe Sioux Falls or something like that he's taken them all to championships. You don't do that by magic. You do it by good coaching. I have heard nothing from their camp that would indicate that there's been any problems at all with the team. I like Alabama. I think they'll be a playoff team, no question about that. But as far as the others, you have to look at Ohio State. They're going to be very strong. Notre Dame's opening game, Notre Dame's season opener is Texas A&M at Kyle Field. 100,000 people rooting against you. That's the proof of the pudding is what the Irish are going to have. Texas A&M will be a top team. They're all going to be very good. The one that I find very surprising, and I don't mean this in a negative way, is Missouri. And the Tigers are ranked number 11, preseason number 11. They are almost a guarantee to win their first 4 games. They're all at home. Murray State from the Missouri Valley Conference. Boston College, which has been over the last 10 years and also ran in the ACC. Buffalo, which plays in the MAC and is a pretty good program. And their conference opener, Vanderbilt. All at home. That's 4-0 right there. They will go in, then they play Texas A&M, and that may be a totally different story. But the fact is Drinkwitz's team a legitimate number 11 in the country, which would be a playoff team, and I think they are.
Well, Alex, our resident Mizzou guy, so what do you think about Missouri this year?
You know, they did lose some talent over the past offseason, some seniors going out, but the big ones that they keep Brady Cook at quarterback and they keep Luther Burden at wide receiver, and those are legitimate weapons. Now, the SEC is a meat grinder, as we all know, so that 4-0 start's going to have to be a necessity, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So, because, you know, we already mentioned Georgia in that opener. Alabama last year stumbled out the blocks, and then somewhere halfway through the season, Jalen Milroe at quarterback figured something out, and they looked like a completely different team. And they had Michigan in the playoff, but ultimately came up a little short. So I think Mizzou's got a real shot. I'm conditioned to them having one good year and then it all falls apart. So that's been their history. So I'm not going to hold out any serious hopes. But this is our first year with the 12-year playoff. Everything's going to expand this year. So Mizzou being one of those first teams out last year, they would have been one of the final 12 going into the college football playoff last year. So the window is broadened. This is going to reduce that argument. No more Florida State's going undefeated and missing the playoff because their quarterback got hurt in the last week of the season. Things like that are not – they would have still got their shot. Based on how they played in their bowl game, they probably would have gotten whooped, but they're going to get their shot, as will – your small programs who go undefeated. You've said all along we're up there with the best of them. Times you get a chance to prove it now.
Alec, the factor of the 12-team playoff that interests me the most is not who necessarily makes it. It's how many times, and I think the answer is 0, that some senior who thinks he's going to be a big shot in the draft says, I don't think I'm going to play in that game. Really? In a national playoff game? I don't think so, son. You better hand over your scholarship if that's the case. I don't think it would happen. So I think from having several teams probably decimated like Ohio State was last year in the Cotton Bowl, I don't think you're going to see any. So you'll see some legitimate championship level, barring injuries.
And I hope that's the case because, for these guys, if they truly think they have potential to go into the draft and be a high pick, if you're playing in that playoff game, you are playing against more NFL talent than you will have at any point throughout the year in a row. There could be, let's say just use Carson Beck because it's a name that's coming to mind right now. If they think he's maybe a second or third round caliber quarterback going into the draft, and he goes on an absolute tear for 3 games because they say they get a bye in the first round of the college football playoff and then rips through the next 3, they win a championship. He decimates 3 great teams. You can guarantee come April he's probably going to the first round with those kinds of performances. So guys will be motivated to play. And even though it's going to be hard on the athletes, it's a lot more football they're going to go through, but we the viewers are going to be spoiled because that's probably going to be that's crunch time NFL coming in on playoff races. That's college football playoff games. It's going to be basically weekend after weekend, just Super Bowl caliber matchups just at both levels every single week. And it's going to be really fun, but I hope the athletes can handle these extra games they're going to have to play.
Yeah. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, the SEC's got 10 out of the top 25 and the top 25. They're obviously, like you call them, the meat grinder. It's going to be fun to watch this year. I think that the playoff system is going to be really, really entertaining. I really do think. I think they've done a fantastic job making this happen. And so, I hope Mizzou goes 0-12. Being a Kansas guy, Kansas is ranked 22nd. They made the top 25 this year. First time since Mangino to be actually ranked before the season started. So, but that's, of course, my selfishness being a Mizzou
You have
hater.
Basketball.
That's all right.
Get out of here.
No, listen. Leopold, our coach, is going to turn around. Now, I will tell you, all of the games for KU is going to be played at Arrowhead.
Arrowhead, yeah.
And you don't hear anybody from Kansas complaining about taxes and giving the state of Missouri any money, but you would definitely hear it from the Mizzou side. But I'm looking forward this year. I'm hoping with the 12, we see things that happen that didn't, like the Florida State thing, which was an absolute joke. I understand why they did it, but it's going to answer a lot of questions. It's going to put a lot of things to rest to where we can actually watch football and have nothing to complain about, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do a thing here on the station each weekday at noon called the Yearbook, and I bring up a website that has trivia about a year, and I was interested in the sports, and I look back. At one time, there were 4 separate polls for college football. And what you would typically see, and Ned, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that three of the polls would pick one team, and then there'd be this one kind of outlier at the end of the season that picked another team. So there's always controversy in college football. I mean, always. I think there's been very few years that at the end of the season, everybody was like, yeah, that's the best team. There was no what ifs or maybe this team should have got to play them or that. Now we're not going to have anything to gripe out. What are we going to do, Ned?
Well, I do remember one year that did happen, and I want to say it was back in the either late 60s or early 70s when Woody Hayes at Ohio State had the supposedly greatest team of the century. Unbeaten, all this, and carrying on, and Woody would be Woody Hayes and the media and so forth. They made the Rose Bowl that year. And they played a vast underdog UCLA team coached by, well, Now I've drawn a blank on his name. Philadelphia Eagles coach with the Kansas City for a long time. Coached him.
Herm.
No. Oh God, what is the matter with me? Anyway, coached by this individual. UCLA beat him in the Rose Bowl game, and all of a sudden the media collapses on Ohio State and says, they can't win the big ones and all that sort of. Come on, it's coach the St. Louis Rams, coach the
Dick Vermeil,
and that's who had UCLA that year, Vermeil, and he outcoached him. He outcoached Woody Hayes, so it can happen.
Well, if you want drama, who's going to win the Pac-12, Oregon State or Washington State?
Are they even calling it the Pac-12? I think they've changed the name of it.
I don't even know, but it's a two-horse race. It's going to be exciting to watch. I don't know where those teams – the Pac-12 is basically dead at this point, but those are two teams I don't think had landed in a conference.
This is really interesting, too, that because it's 1 year. That's the way they have this structured. Those teams will play teams from the Mountain West for the most part. I really feel like both Washington State and Oregon State will try to get into one of the top 5 conferences, or the Power 5, so to speak. I really think that's what they'll do, or try to do. And if they can't succeed in doing that, then they will form their own league, which will also include Air Force Academy and Wyoming and people like this, San Diego State, people like that. I think that's what the ultimate goal, and let me backtrack on that, not ultimate goal, but the backup plan is if those two can't get in some kind of big conference.
And they're running out of room. I mean, the Big Ten about can't handle it.
They can't, and it's Big 18 now.
Yeah, they've I still think split the Big Ten in half, call one the Big Ten, call the other one the Pac-12, and then the winner of each division can play in the Rose Bowl. I think that's the perfect plan for the Big Ten now. Let's just put it all right back into place.
You have to understand, though, the way they have the playoff structure is the bowl games will come into play in the quarterfinals or semifinals, certainly, but I think they also use them in the quarterfinals as well, and then the championship game is by itself, and it's a week later than it always had been. So the point that you guys brought up about the college players playing in extra games, in Division I AA, where the Bears are having their last year this year in North Dakota State, they all play. It's a 24-team playoff, so they are accustomed to it. That's what I'm saying is that the players from Division 1A, which the Bears join next year, will also become accustomed to it. They can do it. They can get, after all, they're also young. Great condition, and they're young.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Bears as they get set to start their season. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Yeah, we're talking about some football, college football. Let's talk about the Bears for just a second, Ned.
Sure.
How did they, where did they start out? When does that all begin for them?
They begin on August the 29th, a Thursday night, out in Montana, and in Missoula, Montana, against a team that was the runner-up to national champion last year. It's an all-Ursine group, the Montana Grizzlies against the Missouri State Bears. So you have that particular faction of biology taken care of. Anyway, they play at Montana and Montana State, and even the NAIA teams that are out there draw very well, because there's nothing else in that state athletically to really encompass all of the population, which isn't very good. They'll draw 20 to 25,000 people for that opening game, and those folks will be ready. Montana returns that visit here next year, to my knowledge. Okay, the Bears open up with Montana. Then they have their 1A team, which this year is Ball State from Muncie, Indiana. That's a MAC, Mid-America Conference team. And that's when Missouri State can win. I don't want to, say put the pressure on or anything like that, but they can win that game. Third one is their home opener, and it's Lindenwood. Lindenwood from up in St. Louis is D1, their Ohio Valley Conference, and they'll come down here, and that's also one that the Bears should be able to win. Then you get into the meat of the Missouri Valley Conference schedule, and everything is a very combative game there, because after all, you have It's the SEC of 1AA. The Bears close the season, and it will be the close because they're not permitted to play in the playoffs this year because of the fact they're leaving 1AA, is South Dakota State, which is the national champion. Come on, folks. What is this? It is. See you guys. You want to leave the league? See ya. And fortunately for the Bears, the game's down here. Oh, my God. Anyway, that's beside the point. Leave 1AA this year and go to Conference USA at this time next year. They are also not permitted to be in the playoffs next year either. It is the rule. It's the way they have things established. So no wailing and gnashing of teeth and so forth and so on. That's the way it's going to be, and they understand that.
Dang it. They're probably going to go 12-0 next year. And,
probably not. That won't happen because, number one, the league, it's a 1A league, and you have very good competition. Not the Bears can't win. They have a game next year, which absolutely fascinates the daylights out of me because, to my knowledge, it will be the very first ever, quote, big-time college to visit little old Springfield, Missouri. It's Southern Methodist, and they come in here to play. They are Atlantic Coast Conference. And trying to make the somewhat listenless public understand this is an ACC team coming in here to play at Plaster Sports Complex.
That'll be a big deal.
You better get your ass out there and in the seats there and watch this team if you're going to prove anything at all to the public. So from that standpoint on, I think Coach Beard is doing a very good job with this team. They'll be competitive in every game they play.
If you said the SEC was the meat grinder of the Division I in the Bears Conference, it is the wood chipper they play in. The Missouri Valley. All right, Ned, how close are we to having an athletic director?
I think a while away yet. There are 3 finalists, and two of the 3 finalists have been here. The third finalist will be here on Monday, and he'll be interviewed. And to Missouri State's credit, they are opening up several forums to have the public come in, those who are interested. I've been to a couple of them now. One apparently has withdrawn. I have never been able to confirm that. The second one yesterday from Appalachian State, very personable individual who won over his crowds. And the third one from Arizona State, we'll find out a little bit more on him Monday. That is not to say those 3 will be the ultimate choices because there's a little addendum in all of the public releases that the committee feels like if none of these guys is acceptable, we'll open it up again. So it isn't final. I don't think we'll see somebody until after the football season has started.
Let's turn our attention to baseball because, that is our favorite sport, and it's going on right now. And, we've talked all season long about how kind of schizophrenic the National League Central is, except for the Milwaukee Brewers, who have been the class of the division the whole time around. The Cardinals played pretty well, but they've fallen off the table.
Cardinals are 10 games out of first place. And this is a Milwaukee Brewers team that leads the division by that 10 games and without one of their best players, Christian Yelich, who will not be in for the rest of the year. He had back surgery, so he is out. But yet they continue to play well. Now, having said that, the Cardinals will host the Brewers. I think it's a 3-game series. Does that sound right? I think it is next week. And a chance to at least edge into that margin a little bit. But when you consider there are, I think it's 39 games, either 40 or 39 remaining in the season, and you're 10 games out, that's a formidable barrier to have to overcome. The Kansas City Royals are right on the cusp of a wild card. If they continue to play well, they'll be a wild card. I don't think they can catch the Cleveland Guardians, but Kansas City is a well-constructed team. I really feel like their best years are in the future. But right now, they can play, and they can play tough, and they're a big pain in the behind to a lot of the other teams in that division.
ESPN has a little percentage column at the side of their standings, which tells you the chance that a team has of making the playoffs. The Cardinals are at a very meager 4.5%. Now, it's kind of funny is they're in third place. They have 4.5% chance of making playoff. The team that's ahead of them, Cincinnati, only has a 3.9% chance.
Well, really, they're tied, though, Joe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, they're tied. They have the same record. But it's kind of funny how that all broke out. But the Royals, which Jake, I know, wants to talk about, they 62% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, if you look at their schedule, they got a pretty decent schedule to close out the season. They're only 5 games back from the Guardians, so that there's still a little bit of a race there. There's plenty of games left to tighten that gap for sure. And it also depends. I think they play the Guardians two different series.
They have more series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be all up on what you're going to do, how you're going to look at what we got left. And it's funny, the Cardinals are tied with the Cubs and the Reds. It's those three are have 60 wins, and then the gap between the first place is pretty big. But the Royals, I do think they're going to make it, and I love how they're playing right now. Yeah, they've led a lot. Well, the Twins have just murdered them here, and they play the Twins bad every year. So hopefully they'll get that ship, and hopefully make the playoffs and
bring on the White Sox.
That's right. We need some White Sox. We need some other teams to come in. Yeah.
Alex St. Louis, who dropped 2 out of 3 to the White Sox.
He dropped 2 out of 3 to them.
Yeah, what's happened to the Cardinals, Alec?
It's just bottom fell out, and I think I'm personally never was a true buy-in to this season. I thought they'd be better than last year, which they still are at this point. That's just how bad last year was. But they're this is a team that's stuck in the place you don't want to be in. You have too much talent to call it You have too much talent to say, well, we're in a rebuild, but you don't have enough talent to say we're a competitor. They're stuck in the middle, and they're going to have to make a choice here and soon, whether it's a fire sale of all the guys who they can get any value out of this offseason and just go back to square one, or if they want to bulk up and try and make this a competitive roster, which I don't think this front office is willing to shell out the cash to do. But I also think they're stubborn enough that they think they're close, despite what the product on the field continues to say. So it's just been inconsistent all year. There's been more bad than good throughout, and we're in a bad slump now, and it's running out of time to be able to afford those.
Now, I'm going to paint you a scenario that occurs tonight. They play a late afternoon, early evening game up in St. Louis, and Andre Palante, who is really no great shakes as a starter, fair reliever, but he gets the start for the Cardinals tonight. The Dodgers, who have great problems with their pitching. They have a lot of injuries. They have called up their number 1 draft choice from last year, Bobby Miller. They've called him up from Oklahoma City, where his ERA is over 8. And he's pitching against the Cardinals tonight.
He's going to have his best outing of the season. He's going to go 8 shutout.
Possibly a no-hitter.
That's just how it goes for the Cardinals.
Yeah. When we come back, we'll give you our pick for today's game. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
There's a
You're
true
listening
fan.
to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Here's the way the afternoon's going to play out for you. Just about 6 minutes from now will be the start of the Chiefs pregame show. Mitch Holtis, Dana Hughes, Dan Israel, and the whole crew. They'll be reporting in from Kansas City today. The Chiefs play the Detroit Lions. It is the second of 3 preseason games, and this is the one... I don't know, Ned. Is this now the one that is taking the place of what used to be the 3rd preseason game, but that was the most important, or are all these just dogs now?
Well, no. I think you're accurate in saying that for most of the clubs. As far as this one's concerned, a lot of I hearken everything to Philadelphia Eagles, and the Detroit Lions are, in a way, the same way. Jared Goff hadn't played at all. They'll have Sudfeld in there at quarterback today, and he'll probably quarterback much of the ball game. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts has played exactly 0. They have 1 game remaining. He'll play exactly 0 for the preseason. He'll get his start in the opening game. I suspect that's what a lot of these other clubs are doing with 3. And imagine what it's going to be like when it goes to 2, when they expand to 18 regular season games, which is inevitable. That's exactly what's going to happen down the line. Hasn't happened yet. In this one today, I look for the Lions to play Sudfeld and some of their others for a good portion of the first half. Andy Reid says his regulars will play for a half. Boulder Dash, you will not see Mahomes in there for any more than 2 series at the most, and the same with any of their other regulars. When you're testing talent like that, there have been no cuts and probably won't be until cut down day prior to the start of the regular season. Therefore, well, I'm very reluctant to ever pick against the Chiefs, and I won't. I think they will win today, but it may be an interesting football game. Let's put it that way.
Jake, your thoughts on today's game?
It's preseason. Guys trying to make the team. I think that Andy will kind of let Carson Wentz play a lot. See, I am not sold.
You screamed at on our group text. You were screaming at Carson Wentz.
No, I don't like him. I think he's terrible. I think and you said earlier that the quarterback obviously is the glue that makes the entire team and season stick together, but we do not have a good backup. That's the scariest part about our team, in my opinion. You'll see Mahomes a couple times today, if not just one.
You'll see, I think Ian Book will play some, and Oladikin, the kid from South Dakota State, will play some. It's down to those two, because I think the third-string quarterback will be in the taxi squad. But Carson Wentz will be there, and he'll suit up every day, and he'll be the guy with the clipboard making millions and millions of dollars.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, but that's I just hope that we don't. Chad Duhenne was so good, right, and was that guy that just you knew if something happened, like you did a couple of seasons when Mahomes got hurt. But man, that's the scary part about this entire team is who's going to actually step up. Yes, it's Wentz's job to have and probably keep this year, but man, he is not the answer.
You don't like the Missouri Valley Conference, do you?
I guess not. I saw what he did in Philly. I saw what he did the next team. It's just not good.
What do you think, Alec?
I wouldn't be shocked if what Andy Reid said about playing a half is true for some of the guys who are a little less, like no to Mahomes, no to Kelsey. Basically the whole front offensive line, those guys that are set. But maybe you do see Xavier Worthy get an extra series or two over that, because some of this time for guys like that, this is important reps. This is live action. This is where you'll develop more than anywhere else, because you practice how you play, I know, but it's just different when you're out there on the field. But it's ultimately going to be a talent evaluation, so see those backups get in there. Something cool that's happening with L.A. with the Rams, Sean McVay is actually letting one of the assistant coaches coach the preseason games as the head coach to get real reps. Yeah. Which I think that's a neat idea, especially if the head coach can just kind of evaluate your talent. You can step aside and just watch these guys play, which is what these games are supposed to be about. So it'll be interesting to see which of these guys, it means something to those guys fighting for a roster spot. It doesn't mean much to us, but for them, this is everything. So you're going to see a lot of heart on the field.
Chiefs win or lose today?
I always pick them to lose in the preseason, just because I always pick the better team to lose whenever we're talking preseason. So I'm going to go Lions, but, it's preseason.
I'll tell you guys what the dumbest thing I've seen, putting a point spread with the bookies on these exhibition games. That is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. Real quick, Alec, who's going to win the starting job in Pittsburgh?
Russell Wilson.
All right, there you go. There you got it. We will be back on the air 5 o'clock Thursday for Ned Talk. Get set for the Chiefs pregame show from the Chiefs Radio Network. Dan Israel, Mitch Holtis, Dayton Hughes, Art Haynes, and the whole crew. It's coming your way in just a minute right here on 104.7 The Cave.